The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
You are now tuned in to the PA Power Podcast featuring Jeff Upson and Eric Knopsynder. PA Power Wrestling. PA Power Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
What's going on, wrestling fans? You are now tuned in to the PA Power Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Upson, joined as always by my co-host, Eric Knopsynder. And Eric, despite us not being around recently, at least on the air, there's been a lot of wrestling going on, specifically in Budapest, the World Championships. And I don't know about you, but I get pumped up for this USA team and just seeing all the success that's been going on, despite us watching Captain America, Kyle Snyder, falling in the gold medal match. Just a real heartbreaker there.
It was. I mean, it was one that everyone was looking forward to with the rematch with Sadulayev, who Snyder had beaten once before, the only guy to beat him, basically. And so to see him go out and get pinned in a minute and a half was really kind of stunning. But it shouldn't overshadow what was a really strong performance for the U.S. in Budapest. It didn't have the team title like last year, finished second to the Russians, but some great individual moments. David Taylor, Kyle Dake, Jaden Cox all winning titles. So, a great showing by the U.S. for the most part.
Yeah, and don't forget about Joe Colon. I mean, he was an alternate. He was a guy who lost to Nishant Garrett, and then he comes in after Garrett gets injured and then comes out and wins a bronze medal in Budapest, which is just incredible. So I agree. Despite Captain America losing in the finals and what a kind of a fluky sort of sequence there, it shouldn't overshadow the fact that the U.S. came out and battled. Talk about David Taylor. My gosh. I mean, he looks like maybe the pound-for-pound best wrestler in the world right now. I mean, I know that's a bold statement. I think I heard someone else on social media say that, but he's just amazing. I mean, it's just incredible to watch him dominate these wrestlers at such a high level. He was
incredible. I'd probably still go Sadulayev pound for pound, and I think Kyle Dake's got to be up there too. I mean, he was incredible in this tournament. But what you're talking about with David Taylor, especially the second periods in these matches, first period he looked human. Second period, not at all. I think it was something like 37-0. He outscored opponents in the second period in Budapest.
Yeah, and Kyle Dake as well. Like you said, he shut out his opponents, and just an incredible performance overall by the U.S. So that's what's going on internationally. Here, closer to home, nationally, I know we're gearing up to go down to Greensboro for the Super 32, Eric. One of our biggest tournaments of the year, a lot of Pennsylvania power that always goes down to Greensboro. And then, of course, we have our very own tournament, the Surge, coming up the weekend after. So we've been pretty busy behind the scenes with wrestling, especially the Surge. I mean, this is our first tournament running, and my gosh, I hope it gets easier as the years goes on, Eric. I really do. It's been fun. I'm really excited for the Surge at Pitt Johnstown. We've got a lot of really tough kids coming in to compete, which we will be doing a preview for that. But this episode, we're going to focus mainly on the Super 32 and previewing that. But I just want to mention, Eric, that registration is still open for the Surge. We're going to keep that open until Saturday morning. Competition is only one day. It's on Sunday the 4th at UPJ. So we originally slated it for 2 days, not knowing their numbers. But now with the numbers coming in that we have, a good number of wrestlers coming in, but I think it's feasible for us to do it in 1 day. It saves people some travel time. So for those wrestlers that are maybe playing football on Friday, there's no reason why you can't compete on Sunday, really, if you look at it. So competition will be only on Sunday, and again, you can register on the Flow Arena up until Saturday. But overall, Eric, I'm super excited for the Super 32, and again for the Surge. man, we're just getting right into it. We're diving head first.
It is going to be a whirlwind, Jeff. We leave Friday. We're heading down to Greensboro, driving down there. And from then on, I think until March, it's probably going to be hard to come up for air by the time we go through. As you said, we got the Super 32, and then directly into the week of the Surge, which is going to be crazy for us. And then we're going to be doing all kinds of preseason stuff. And before you know it, we're just going to be waist deep in the season, and really looking forward to it, though.
My now wife told me, she said, it seems like the wrestling season starts earlier and earlier for you every year. She said before it was like, every November through March, I would never see you. But she's like, now it seems like October through March it seems to be the new norm. And I was like, well, good thing I married you in September. So
that's kind of funny you say that, because my wife was kind of the same thing when we first got married. We got married, and eventually she's like, does wrestling season ever end? And I remember writing a column about that, about how it doesn't really, because, you've got the season, the high school and college season, and then you go into freestyle, and there's always something going on. So, yeah, there's really no end to it. There's a couple slow periods, but that's one of the great things about it is we can always find some great wrestling out there somewhere.
Yeah, that's for sure, Eric. There's no shortage of talented wrestling going on across the nation. And Super 32 is a tournament that we've been to for the past several years now. I've covered it for many years, and it seems to always draw a very strong Pennsylvania contingent down there. And of course, we're looking forward to seeing them. So let's just dive right into the preview here of the Super 32, looking at the registrants. Now, of course, these are the people that are registered to compete, not saying they're definitely competing, but they've all paid and have said that they're going to go down to compete in Greensboro. If you look at 106 pounds, now this is one where I look at and I see several different names that I think could make some noise. And if you look at the current rankings of Flow's national rankings, and you look at who's on that list from Pennsylvania, you'll look and see Joey Fisher from South Park is number 12. And Eric, you got to see him out in Fargo this year. He was only a state qualifier last year as a freshman, but he went out in Fargo and competed his tail off in juniors nonetheless, and won a Fargo national championship. He's going to be competing here. He comes in ranked number 12 in the nation. Yeah,
he was fantastic out there, as you said. Moved up to juniors rather than go with the cadets, and was great. I think he was probably a little undersized last year in high school. Still did well. Was still a threat in just about every match, and got to the state tournament. Was just shy of placing there. But he's a guy that I think could really take a step up this year, being a 106-pounder again as a sophomore.
And what's interesting is the guy who won that bracket, the state champion from last year, Gary Steen from Reynolds, doesn't find himself in the national rankings. However, Gary Steen will be competing in the Super 32. He's a sophomore. He was a state champion last year. So you got to like his chances. I mean, this is a guy who's when it comes to folk style, I mean, he's done a lot. He's beaten a lot of tough competitors along the way. And you look at some new faces too. Levi Haynes from Biglerville is a guy that you're going to see on our top incoming freshman report. This is a guy who has a win over Joey Fisher. In fact, I got to see some of that match over at the Steel City Duels at North Allegheny. Levi Haynes is a very stout freshman. In fact, he comes in ranked number 13th in the nation by Flow, which is pretty incredible for a guy who I would say he's done well at the PJW level, but he wasn't the name like Sammy Hilligus coming out of PJWs. So Levi Haynes is a guy I'm looking forward to seeing against these grueling matches, because there are no easy matches in the Super 32, as you know, Eric. And you look at just the Pennsylvania wrestlers here. I think really it's not out of the realm to see at least one or two of these guys get on the podium. However, you look at the national rankings, and we have number 1, 2, 7, 9, 10, 11, all there. So, of course, we're going to have to pull some upsets.
Yeah, that's why it is such a great tournament, and why we make the trip all the way to North Carolina to watch it is because of that talent that it attracts, and seeing all these guys. And as we've talked about before in the past about this tournament, it's so good to see. You can see how kids have maybe jumped levels from the end of the high school season until the start of the preseason preseason here with really the Super 32. And that's some of what we're looking forward to on a closer level with the Surge also, as we can kind of see that. But, yeah, so much talent here. And I think you're right. I think we probably could get a couple on the podium, but it's certainly not going to be easy.
I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't get anybody on the podium either. I mean, I think we could get 2, but I wouldn't be surprised if we go home without any medals. Just looking at nationally ranked competitors here in the Super 32, there are some pretty well-accomplished wrestlers from Pennsylvania competing. Kyle Waterman from Council Rock South. He was 5th in the state last year. Matt Volok from Pope John Paul. He was 8th last year. Of course, you have Kyle Hauserman from Council Rock North, who was very tight with all those wrestlers throughout the year. Carter Dybert from Franklin Regional. And you got some fresh faces as well. You got Jackson Arrington from Forest Hills. So you got a guy that I really like, Dylan Coy from North Allegheny. So you got some guys that are looking to prove something a little bit against a little bit more tougher competition. This isn't a typical preseason tournament. This is the Super 32, so you can really make a name for yourself.
Yeah, and we've seen that with guys in the past. We saw it last year with Thane Lawrence. I remember, a lot of the Flow guys coming up to us and saying, "Man, who's this Thane Lawrence kid?" And we're like, "What do you mean? We know all about him." But you can step forward on that national level here.
They're also wondering where Frazier was too. So
yeah, well, a lot of people in Pennsylvania are wondering that as well.
Well, that's true. That's true. So let's make our predictions here for 106. How many medals do we get here? What are you going with?
I'm going to go with just 1.
You know what? I hate to always agree with you, but yes, I'm going to go with a safe bet. I'm going to go with 1. I'm not going to say who, because I think there's probably 5 or 6 guys that have a legit shot of getting on the podium, but it's really the draw of the bracket, really, I think, when you look at it. And, I don't see us winning this championship. However, depending on how the bracket falls, you could get a guy that gets on a hot streak and ends up getting in the top 8. So we'll agree with that on 106. Hopefully, we don't have as much throughout the rest of the weights. If you go up to 113 pounds, this is another weight where you see nationally ranked guys, including number 1, number 3, number 4, number 6, number 8, number 9. 10, 12, 13, 17, 18, 20. So, and none of those wrestlers are from Pennsylvania. So you got to say probably an uphill battle. If we look at the entries here, 13, unfortunately, is probably the weakest weight of the Pennsylvania wrestlers going down here. And I say that in the nicest possible way. But the highest placing guy is Talreese Fleming from Liberty, who was 3rd last year. He's a senior, competing at 113 pounds. You got Gable Strickland from Benton, who was 5th last year, and Ben Mon from Cumberland Valley, who was 6th last year in the state tournament. So you look at it and you say, well, 3 of them are tough, but you gotta be really firing all cylinders to get past some of these big name guys at 113.
Any freshmen here that you see that can make some noise?
Well, there's Finn Solomon from Franklin Regional, and you may remember his name because Gus Solomon from Franklin Regional is his older brother, who is probably the best wrestler in modern day to never even make it to the state tournament because he was always injured. He actually had a win over Luke Karam at the state dual team tournament and never made it to states. And Luke Karam was a 3-time state champion. But his younger brother, Finn, is one of the freshmen here competing. So I'm curious to see how he does. I was kind of surprised to see him up at 113 pounds because last time I saw him, he was a little bit smaller. But yeah, again, not a ton of participants from Pennsylvania here, so it's going to be tough to see us get anyone on.
Yeah, I'm again, not great podcast when we're agreeing, but I don't see any medals coming out of here.
All right, Eric, we gotta find some disagreement somewhere. Do you want to talk politics instead?
Well, we've had disagreements on the ride to Greensboro before. I'm sure we can find things to disagree about.
Very, very true. So 120 pounds. Now things start to heat up a little bit for Pennsylvania. You get a lot of tough guys, including one name who actually won the tournament before, and that is Ryan Crookham from now Notre Dame Green Pond, right? That NDGP school out in the eastern part of the state. Ryan Crookham, of course, everyone knows him, as they should now, because as an 8th grader, he won the Super 32 last year, and he's now up at 120 pounds where he's competing, and he comes in ranked number 9 in the nation. So you got Julian Tagg from Ohio, number 4. Lucas Bird from Ohio is number 7. Those two are both really, really tough guys. So Crookham, being a guy who's only a freshman, he hasn't even wrestled a single high school match yet, already coming in ranked 9th in the nation, and he's here at 120 pounds.
Yeah, this is going to be really interesting because he was one that, obviously burst onto the scene last year. I know you knew a lot about him already, but nationally didn't have that reputation. And to become the first 8th grader to ever win a Super 32 varsity title really put him on the map. Didn't quite do as well as he would have liked, I'm sure, at Fargo. So, he's didn't have that summer maybe that could have boosted him a little bit up to the rankings, but still not bad when you're an incoming freshman ranked 9th in the country.
Yeah, I would say that's not too shabby here. We actually have quite a few state finalists as well. Bo Bayless from Reynolds, who was a state champion 2 years ago and was 3rd last year. If you remember that, he lost to Brock McMillan from Glendale, who was a state finalist last year as a freshman. He'll be here as well. Killen Delaney from Westchester Henderson also was a state runner-up last year to Ryan Sullivan. He's going to be at the Super 32 at 120. You look at also Notre Dame Green Pond's second wrestler here, and that's Richard Marcukulis from Notre Dame. He's going to be here competing. He was 3rd last year in the state tournament, so a lot of really depth here for Pennsylvania. Add in Curtis Phipps from Norwin, who was a state runner-up last year, of course. We saw him at 106 pounds. He's going to be here at 120 pounds. And then you got a slew of state medalists that are going to be competing. Jacob Blair from Muncie, who was 8th last year. 2 years ago, you got Christian Fisher, who was 8th from Mifflin County. You got Matt Maloney from Liberty, who was 5th last year. You got Amon Ole from St. Joe's Catholic was 6th. And then you got Blake Showers from Biglerville, Nathan Smith from Bishop McDevitt, both were 7th. And Cole Wilson from Northeastern was 4th. So the depth here for Pennsylvania is pretty strong. However, it's such a deep weight nationally that, it's going to be interesting to see how they all pan out, how they all shake out.
Yeah, that's one of the things you look at and you say, okay, nothing against a 3rd or 4th place kid. I mean, that's obviously really tough to do in Pennsylvania, but that certainly doesn't guarantee you anything when you get to Greensboro. So, I mean, we've seen it before. State medalists go down there and go 2-2 or 1-2 even. It's such a difficult tournament that unless you are really at that elite level, you're not guaranteed anything, and you're not guaranteed anything even if you are at that level. You just have a better opportunity. So I kind of look at that and say, okay, yeah, Crookham should be in the hunt again, but a lot of those guys I think are going to go down there and win a couple matches, but probably not end up on the podium.
Yeah, and one name that I don't see here is Ryan Sullivan. I thought he was entered. I believe he was. But
yeah, he was on the flow. I know on the flow preview he was listed in there. But
I don't see him on the entry list. So
yeah, so maybe he's pulled out.
I don't know for sure exactly, but if Ryan Sullivan's there, he's gonna be a force to reckon with as well. Committed to the University of Pittsburgh, was a state champion last year, kind of dominated throughout the season last year. Is a senior now this year, and I know he really wanted to go down there and get a Super 32 belt. Again, I'm not 100% sure. I don't see him on the entry list, but I know he was included on Flo's preview as well. So regardless, you look at it and you say, man, there's a lot of talent here. But as you said, can they get over that hump? And I do feel like someone's going to get a podium. I'm going to say 2 here. I'm going to say 2 for 120 pounds.
I was going to go say 2, but since you went with 2, I'll stick with 1. If Sullivan's not in it, if Sullivan's in it, we'll go 2. But otherwise, I'm going to stick with 1.
That's kind of a cop-out. I mean, it's 1 or 2, Eric. Not
all right,
if this
fine. I'll go
person's here.
1.
Okay, all right. Well, even if Sullivan's not there, I'm going to say 2. not sure which two, but I would say Crookham's going to be probably one of them. And then there's a good, chance that a bunch of other folks can get on there as well. So, but we'll see. So we have disagreed on that, right?
Yes.
All right. That's good. Let's move up to 126 pounds. 126 pounds again. Man, I don't know what it is about Super 32, but it attracts some of the nation's best. Number 2, number 3, number 4, number 8, number 9, 13, 15, 17, and 20, all coming in ranked in the nation. One of those wrestlers, Sean Pearson, who came in ranked number 8 in the nation at 126 pounds, is the lone one from Pennsylvania. However, you look at 126 pounds and man, there's some serious contenders here. I'm looking at names like Elijah Bundro from Wilson. You got Colton Camacho from Franklin Regional, a guy who was a state runner-up last year, has always done well. Bronson Garber from Upper Dauphin. He's a VMI commit. He's a 3-time state medalist. In addition to Sean Pearson, who was ranked as high as number 1 last year from Nazareth. He was right there with Logan Macri and Doug Zapp. Gabe Willishell from Latrobe, 6th place last year. And Zach Whitmer from St. Joseph Catholic. He was 5th in the state last year. So you look at this, and I think there's some pretty decent names here. Yeah,
as you said, you got a couple right there at the top with Pearson. I like Garber, Camacho, as you said. There are quite a few guys here that make you feel a little more comfortable that we're going to get a couple medalists out of this one.
Yeah, and who do you outside of Sean Pearson, who comes in ranked number 8 in the nation, who else do you see on here that you think is capable to get on the podium?
I like 8? Camacho. What I saw of him in Fargo, again, another guy that I'm sure wasn't the place that he wanted, but man, he is so quick. I like Camacho. I'd like to see him take a step forward here and see if he can get on the podium in Greensboro.
Yeah, and last year I wrote an article about the top wrestlers from Pennsylvania that did not place. Sean Pearson was one of them. I really liked the way he competed. He really did some damage on the bottom half of the bracket. And Colin Camacho is another one who he's just beaten a ton of talented wrestlers. He has a win over Jackson Henson here at the Super 32. He's always wrestled well at the Super 32. So I think this is probably the year for him to get over the hump. But don't look past Gabe Willishell either. I mean, he's so funky. When he gets on a roll, watch out. So, I mean, he's the type of guy that can really frustrate people. And, I wouldn't be surprised to see him knock off a few ranked wrestlers here. But
well, you bring up a good point there. I think he's probably the type of guy that the first time you wrestle him is really hard because he is so funky and so different than most guys you see. So whenever he's matching up with somebody from Missouri or California or Colorado that doesn't know anything about him, hasn't seen him before, that could be a really tough matchup. So that's a good point that you bring up there. That style might make it really difficult for some of these guys that haven't seen somebody like that before.
Yeah, hopefully no one from Missouri or Colorado is listening to this podcast. Gabe Willishell
just straight on double legs, half Nelsons,
doesn't do any Petersons, no Petersons, no things that you say why are you doing that, and then it turns out okay, and you say good job, good move. You're pretty standard 2-move guy. Gabe Willishell is. So yeah, I mean again 26 is a weight that I think we can get 2. So I'm going to stick with 2 for that, and I think Pearson and Camacho probably have the best chance, but don't look outside of Whitmer as well. It's just tough when you look at the other names on here. I mean, from outside of Pennsylvania, Dom Serrano from Colorado is number 2 in the nation. He's super tough, and then the guy who has like 7 Super 32 belts, Adam Basella from New York. He's going to Penn State. How many? I feel like he has like 4 or 5 Super 32 belts already.
Well, he's a 3-time high school champ, right?
At least a 3-time high school champ, I believe.
Yeah, well, it couldn't be 4 because Kirkham was the first 8th grader to do it. So,
well, he has a lot. So, in addition to his junior high, yes. So, I'm going with 2. Eric, how many are you going with?
I'm going with 2 as well.
Please, maybe you should start going first, so that way you stop picking what I'm going to pick.
Well, I mean, there's only so many chances here. We're not going 7.
No. Unless, no, 6 would be my highest. No, I'm just kidding. That's insane. Although, if it was one weight class where we see a lot of wrestlers getting on the medal stand, it's 132 pounds. 132 pounds is dominated by Pennsylvania wrestlers. You look at the national rankings from Flow, the number 2, number 4, number 5, number 7, number 8, 10, 11, 12, 14, 14, 15, 16, 16, 20, and 20. Some of those are double ranked because they're competing at different weights than what they're ranked. Number 4, 5, and 7 are all from Pennsylvania. Bo Bartlett from Wyoming Seminary, who we saw here last year, finished second at the Super 32, was a national prep champion. He is number 4 in the nation. He comes in. You got to like his chances. Josh Saunders, from Missouri, is the number 2 ranked wrestler here. Super tough, very talented wrestler, got a lot of experience. But then you have a dark horse, and I say that lightly, but Julian Clevebeau from Northampton, a guy who didn't wrestle at all last year.
Yeah, we haven't seen him in a year. So
haven't seen him.
It's going to be really interesting to see what he looks like. We know the talent's there, obviously. We know how good he is. It's just, what's he been doing in that year? Is he, has he improved? It's tough to improve when you haven't competed. If you're just practicing, it's not easy to get that much better, it seems, but we'll see.
Yeah, so, Julian's a guy who everyone knows is a 2-time state champion from Northampton, got into some trouble and was off the mat last year for the entire year. I talked to a few coaches that saw him compete at the Waterway duels, I believe it was, and said, he looked good, but he didn't look, I guess, like he did his freshman, sophomore year. But again, that's off season. A lot of people don't look great in the off season, but I'm very curious to see how he competes here, because he's done well at the Super 32 before. He finished 5th last year, has done some pretty good things in the offseason in the national tournaments, including the Flow Nationals. However, like you said, that's such a long layover. Does he still have, what it takes to beat some of these top-ranked guys, especially when you look at the depth of 132 pounds? It's just incredible.
Yeah, there are so many guys, Pennsylvania guys alone, and then, of course, the rest of the country. So, and this might be one of those where you end up with a lot of Pennsylvania on Pennsylvania crime, where, guys are running into each other in the quarters, in the semis, in the consies, and kind of bumping each other off. Right, and I agree with you, Eric. Unfortunately, I think we are going to see some Pennsylvania on Pennsylvania crime. A lot of guys. It's inevitable that's going to happen. But I'm surprised Sammy Hilligus comes in ranked number 7th in the nation. I thought he'd be a little bit higher. I always say this every year. He's kind of never really gets the respect I think he quite deserves. He was a state champion, 2-time state champion. He was 4th here last year at the Super 32. And in fact, you remember he lost to Bo Bartlett here and at Power 8 as well. But Sammy's a guy who's everyone wants him in their college program. He's very talented. He does a lot of the right things. He's just a very good person, and I think he's gonna get on the podium here. But look at some of the other names from Pennsylvania. In addition to Bartlett, Clevebeau, and Hilligus, you got Patrick Noonan from Stroudsburg, who hasn't medaled at the state tournament, but last year he was injured. He won the Journeyman 2 weeks ago and looked really, really good in doing it. I got to watch that on Flow, and Noonan looked really tough. So I think he probably could end up making making some noise. He's had an incredible offseason. NHSCA champion, Flow Nationals 3rd. So, putting up a lot of really big results. And as you said, hasn't won a PIAA medal yet, but he's number 11 in the Flow ranking. So he's obviously doing it on the big stages, just haven't seen it yet at Hershey.
And I like the fact that they, Flow and the other major syndicates, they take into consideration obviously a lot more than just your state finish and your state tournament. But some other guys here, Marquise Branford from Wilson area, who's always dogging me on social media saying I don't give him enough respect. You got to get on the podium, Marquise. you got to get on the podium at Hershey, man. He's I would say he's got some really, really good wins, but then you look at it and say, well, how'd you take that loss? So, and I know he's been in some tough brackets at the state tournament, but if hashtag prove it, I want to see you go out there and get it done. He's a guy who we've seen at Fargo do really well. I saw him 2 years ago at Fargo, and I was like, man, if he wrestles like that in folk style and during the year, he's going to be a state medalist for sure. So it's just putting it all together. So I'm excited to see Marquise go out there. And you look at other guys, Darren Miller from Kiski area, committed to Bucknell. He's up at 132 pounds. You remember when he beat Moshe Schwartz from Colorado at the Super 32? Was that last year or 2 years ago?
I think that was last year.
Always wrestling tough, those Quest boys, shout out Mason Beckman. But I like these wrestlers from Pennsylvania. Kenny Herman from Bethlehem Catholic was fourth last year in the state tournament, is a very, I would say, consistent wrestler. He's always in good position. He seems to always just find ways to win. I like him, and it should be a really deep and fun weight class.
And one more guy in there with Pennsylvania ties, Wyatt Henson.
Yes, Wyatt Henson, who's not competing for Pennsylvania, but Missouri is going to be competing there. So interested to see how he does. Considering he was a state medalist in Pennsylvania last year and has wrestled many of these guys before. So 132 is definitely one. I think I'm going to go with 3, Eric. I'm going to go with 3.
I thought it was my turn to pick first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I'm going to stick with 2, just because, like I said, so many of these guys are going to bump into each other, especially on that backside of the bracket, that they're going to end up knocking each other off before they get the medal rounds in a lot of cases.
So you're saying either Bartlett, Klebov, or Hilgis will not be placing in the Super 32?
Yeah, it doesn't sound good when you say it that way, does it?
It does not sound good when you say it that way. But yeah, there's no takebacks.
All right, I'll stick with 2.
Well, yeah, you're going to have to. There's no choice. You said it. You've owned it now. So everyone knows Eric Knopsynder picked 2 at 132 pounds. I could see upwards of 4, Eric, but I'm not going to go for it because I'm going to be, a little conservative and say 3. So,
you can't tell me though that there's not a scenario where one of those guys loses early.
Of course not.
In a quarterfinal, and then they meet up, in the blood round.
Absolutely, you're right. That's 100% possible. I just think these 3 are just so talented, and I just can't see one of those, all 3 of them not coming away with at least a top 8. This is my opinion.
Okay, and you're right. They very well could. I'm certainly not saying that's out of the realm of possibility.
You just don't respect Pennsylvania enough, is what it sounds like. Sounds like you should go work for I don't care power wrestling.
I tried the Hawaii power wrestling, but that didn't work out.
That was a bad joke on my part, but you need to show more respect for Pennsylvania. Let's move up to 138 pounds. Talking about respect. Really, really like the respect that the 138-pound wrestlers here are getting in the national rankings. Jaden Abbas from California is 3. Gabriel Tagg from Ohio is 4. Jesse Vasquez from California is 5. You have the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 17, and 19. And of those I just mentioned, only 1 is from Pennsylvania. That's number 10, Ed Scott, who we've seen do a lot of incredible things throughout his career. In fact, he wasn't a medalist last year. He was 3rd 2 years ago, but he wasn't a medalist last year. If you remember, he lost to Gabe Willishell. But there's some interesting names here that I want to see competing, and obviously Ed Scott is one of them, but Eric, there's some guys in here that I think can make some noise. Kenny Kaiser from Sagertown, super talented wrestler. Jagger Condomiti from Northampton. I've been high on him since he was in junior high. I really like the way he wrestles. Nick Coy from Penn Trafford. He was a 5th in the state last year. Is going to Virginia, joining older brother Cameron. Jacob Ely from Hopewell, very under the radar wrestler. I think probably a guy who doesn't get a lot of respect just because he's from Hopewell. But I really think that he's he's going to do well here. Ty Linsenbigler from Hempfield, talented wrestler from the WPIL, was a state qualifier last year. And then there's some new names that you're probably going to see. JT Hogan from Daniel Boone. This is a guy who's probably the biggest name from Daniel Boone since Michael Beard. JT Hogan is a really, really tough wrestler, youth wrestler. He's a freshman this year. He's been on the national scene for a while in the youth ranks, but he could surprise a few people. And you throw in Tyler Williams from Souderton. I think he's another guy who was 6th in the state last year. He's done nothing but get better. He was a state qualifier as a freshman, was injured as a sophomore, and then came back and was a medalist as a junior. In fact, Joe Youngblood from the College Podcast has nicknamed him the mini Brent Metcalf, which I'm not sure how he came up with that, but apparently he's a really good wrestler, because Brent Metcalf was one of my favorite wrestlers watching as throughout the years. So 138, Eric, what are your thoughts?
Again, we've got a lot of depth there. Somebody's going to have to step up, I think, to maybe join Ed Scott on the podium. I kind of like Linsenbigler to maybe do that, but I'm still not sure yet. I think I'm going to go 1 here.
Okay, wow. I'm going to go 2. I'm going to go 2 because I love Pennsylvania, but Ed Scott has not competed well at the Super 32 historically. He's done well, but not as well as you would expect him to. So I think we're going to sneak on 2, and I'm saying the 2 can be a plethora of different individuals. I think Jagger Condomiti is poised to do well. You saw him out in Fargo this past year. Nick Coy, I think he can possibly get over the hump. Jacob Ely. JT Hogan, don't sleep on him. Kenny Kaiser. Connor Quinn from Owen J. Roberts. Even Steven Storm from Pocono Mountain East. These are all guys that are more than capable of knocking some people off. Now, I understand that number 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7, and 8 are all competing here in the Super 32. But again, you get the right momentum going, you can get on the podium. So I'm going to say 2 here.
Okay, yeah, take an upset or 2, but certainly not out of the realm of possibility here.
145 pounds, and probably our most surprising champion from last year, when you look at who was on here, was Ryan Anderson. Ryan Anderson from Bethlehem Catholic won the Super 32 title last year in quite kind of surprising fashion, I would say.
Do we know what weight he's going to be this year?
170, I believe. 170.
Wow, that is not nice.
He went on some type of bakery tour and ended up eating all the pastries.
Poor Ryan Anderson. We love Ryan Anderson, though.
I love Ryan Anderson. He's a super funny guy, super nice. I love talking to him because you just never know what he's going to say. He doesn't really sugarcoat anything either. He's kind of just like, well, this is what it is. You said it. And he's like, I like to eat. Leave me alone. So I really like Ryan Anderson. So he's probably the most likely, I guess you could say, to get a championship here. He comes in ranked number 2 in the nation by flow. But again, there's other guys. Keegan O'Toole is here from Wisconsin, who we've seen compete on the national level. Ryan Vulak from Pope John Paul, a guy who I got to talk to a few weeks ago when he committed to George Mason. I'm very high on him, as you know.
You are. You've been very high on him for years.
Well, he was 3rd in the state last year. His only loss was to Sammy Sasso in the state tournament. He's placed twice at the Super 32. Okay, so he's been there, done that, got the T-shirt twice. Okay, so he's good. Flow Nationals, he's done well there. Journeyman, all he does is win championships as a journeyman tournament. So yes, I think 145 is a weight that we can see multiple guys get on the podium. Caleb Dowling from St. Joe's Catholic Academy. I like the way he wrestles. I really like the way he competes. He's just a gamer. All those St. Joe's guys are gamers. It seems like they're always, Coach Flynn gets them mentally and physically prepared for the season really well. Andrew Cerniglia from Notre Dame, Green Pond. He's a guy who was at Nazareth the last 2 years, was injured last year, was 4th in the state 2 years ago. but he's now at Notre Dame Green Pond. Gabe Miller from Pequay Valley. He was 6th in the state. He was a guy who's been ranked in the nation. I don't know if he's going to UPenn. I don't know if you remember 2 years ago when he was at Fargo and knocked off some really high names out there. He got into national rankings. So there's some really, really talented individuals here at 145 pounds. The only problem is the rest of the field is pretty tough too. Yeah,
it is very tough. And then, for me specifically, I'm interested in seeing one of my local guys, Eric Gibson, who was a Super 32 middle school runner-up last year. He's moving up to the varsity. Kind of tough to break in at 145 to expect him to get on the podium. But I'm looking forward to seeing him against this top competition and seeing how he does there.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really excited, looking forward to Eric Gibson. I'm also looking forward to Deshaun Farber from Nazareth, who is a 2-time state champion out of Georgia, originally from Pennsylvania, moved to Georgia, and now is back in Pennsylvania. He'll be competing as well. Cam Connor from Kiskiyeri, another University of Pennsylvania commit. He's going to be competing here. He was 7th in the state. So these are guys that I think can really push the pace. Tate Nichter from Chambersburg, the younger brother of Luke, he's another guy who I think can surprise some people. AJ Tamburino from William Tennant, another guy that can knock off some wins. So you look at the names, and of course the national rankings would say Anderson's 2, Volok is 15, Cerniglia is 19, and Dowling's 20. So you've got some talent ranked in the nation. How many are you going with here at 145, Eric?
It seems like I'm doing this every weight, but I'm going with 2. I mean, I think Anderson's a really safe bet to be in there, and Volok, even though he's ranked 15th, I like him to get on the podium as well. After that, I think you're going to need a couple upsets to get there.
Okay, I'm going to go with 3. I like these competitors from Pennsylvania. You got a lot of talented guys. So yeah, I'm going with 3, Eric.
Is Cerniglia your best bet for the 3rd, or?
I actually say Dowling is. I think Caleb is. I think he's probably one of the more accomplished wrestlers here. Gabe Miller is also not an outside shot for me as well. Cerniglia, I like him, but again, he's moving up to 145 pounds. See how he does. Maybe Eric Gibson's going to come out and surprise you, Eric. Maybe he's going to get on.
I would love to see that.
Well, listen, we're not holding against you that you don't love Pennsylvania as much as I do.
I just don't have the rose-colored glasses on, maybe, that you do. Didn't we have this kind of conversation before the Classic? And
when I said like Pennsylvania was going to
win every match,
Team USA.
Yeah,
I was like, Gable Stevenson is going to get tech followed by Isaac Reed. Like, this is what's going to happen, guys. That didn't end up happening. I'm living in a very alternate reality, that's for sure. So let's move up to 145 pounds. 145 pounds. You look at the folks ranked in the nation: number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 10, 13, 17, 18, and 20. Of those, you got 1, 2, 3, 4 all coming in from Pennsylvania. The guy leading that charge is none other than Thane I Bring the Pain Lawrence from Fraser. And this guy, I mean, what is there else to say about him? I mean, he pulls off one of the best performances in the state finals I've ever seen, just completely dominating a really, really stout Justin McCoy.
Who had dominated him the week before.
The week prior, right? Thane Lawrence flips the script on him. Last year, he did really well at the Super 32, knocked off some pretty highly ranked names and wrestlers. He made all the noise last year, we know that, but can he follow it up this year with another finish where he puts himself in a position to get into the finals possibly? Thane Lawrence is a guy I think I think it's possible for him to get over that hump and get to the top of the podium here.
Yeah, Brevin Balmaceda, an Oklahoma State commit, really tough. That could be, I'm sure, would prove problematic for Thane. But I do like his chances of getting to the finals. I'm not sure he can win it, but I like his opportunity to get there.
He's not the only state champion from Pennsylvania competing there. Nathan Halbert from Palisades was a state champion last year in AA. He's also going to be here. He's committed to Lehigh.
Is he the guy that doesn't get enough respect?
Doesn't get hardly any respect.
Yeah. I mean, a Pennsylvania state champ, you would think that he would get a little more respect than he does.
Yeah, he doesn't nearly, and that's I think part of the reason is he hasn't done historically a lot of off-season wrestling. So I think especially in the national rankings that tends to hurt you a little bit. Cole Handlovic from Bethlehem Catholic, state medalist last year, was 6th. He comes in ranked number 20 in the nation. Clayton Olery as well from Lower Dolphin. He's listed at 160 pounds on the registration, but Flow Preview I believe Flo has him ranked at number 18 at 152 pounds. Eric, are you seeing that?
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing. Yeah,
and that's part of the problem with the Super 32 is sometimes guys are going to come in, one weight and end up wrestling in another. So
it's just kind of preseason in general. I mean,
right.
As important as this tournament is, and as big as it is, and as big a deal as we make of it, it's still a preseason tournament, and guys are kind of still trying to figure out where they want to be weight wise.
Trey Howard from Waynesburg, probably one of the best wrestlers in the state to not qualify for a state tournament in his career. I think he has a chance to do well here. I'm not saying he's going to get on the podium, but I think he has a chance to do well. Tanner Updegraff from Bishop McDevitt. Yeah, there's quite a few here that I think can make noise, but when it comes down to it, I don't know. How many do you see get on the podium? I think I have my guess.
I'm a little more confident here that this is maybe one of the closest that I'm leaning towards 3, but I think I'm still sticking with my standard 2.
Really, you were thinking 3 here. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think that there's some in the mix there. I'd like to see a Clayton Olery, step up here and get on the podium. I think Thane's definitely in the mix there. You're probably right, though. It might be a little. Like I said, I'll go 2, and I feel confident we can get 2 there.
Well, and you look at the national rankings. Unlike 132 pounds, this is a little bit thinner in the national rankings. Yeah,
you go 2, 3, 4, 5. So those 4 are probably going to be on the podium.
And one of them is from Pennsylvania.
Right, that's Thane. And then after that, you drop down into the teens. So I think that some of those PA guys definitely have an opportunity there to step up. It's not that big of a jump from 18 to 7 or 8.
No, I agree with you. And I think, and I'm going to pull an Eric, if Clayton Olery here is at 152, I would say 3.
But you just mocked me for saying 3.
Well, I'm allowed to do it. You're not. That's kind of the way it works around here, Eric. I'm sort of like a dictator of PA Power Wrestling.
Yeah, you got part of that, right?
Wow. I'm going to have to mark this explicit now because you made an off-color remark like that, Eric. It's very unlike you. I'm going to say I'll say 2. I'll say 2 with you to be safe. But don't be surprised if Cole Handlovic, Nathan Halbert, one of them sneak on the podium as well to join Thane Lawrence and Keegan Rothrock from your St. Joe's Catholic. He can do well. Drew Clearly. It's going to be interesting to see, but I'll go the safe bet and go 2. Now, 160 pounds, I would say it's a different story because Pennsylvania, they're bringing a ton of 160-pound wrestlers here if you look at this. And one of them is ranked in the nation. From the national rankings, we have the number 1, 7, 8, 11, 12, 16, and 20. And the one from Pennsylvania, Tyler Stoltzfus from St. Joe's Catholic. He wasn't there last year, but he will be there this year. He was 5th in the state last year. He's number 12 in the nation. 160 pounds. I definitely like our chances of getting some multiple medals here because there's some guys here that really I don't think have a lot of respect on the national level, but that they could. Jack Bloomer being one of them. Nick Delp from Kisk area, those back-to-back Kisk area guys. Jack Bloomer, I saw him compete at the Steel City Duels. In fact, he beat Clayton Olery.
Yeah, but you never give any respect to those Kiski kids, Jeff. Come on.
That's so not true.
Didn't you get called out on Twitter for that a year or so ago?
Yeah, it was Joey Bloomer. It was Joey Bloomer, and I yelled at him when I saw him at Penn State, and he's like, you know what I meant, man. I love Joey Bloomer. He's a great kid. I love his dad, too. They're just good folks. Jack Bloomer, I think, has a chance to surprise some people. Aurelius Dunbar from Mercersburg Academy, 3rd in the National Prep Tournament last year, a guy I've been high on since he was in junior high. Luca Frenzy from Becca, he was 7th in the state last year, recently committed to Lehigh. So another Lehigh commit here at 160 pounds. outside of Luca Frenzy and all those guys, you got a couple other ones that I think could probably make some noise. Ty McGeary from West Allegheny was 6th in the state last year. Jack Bloomer was a regional champion last year, but did not get on the medal stand. Cole Reese from Wyoming Seminary. He was our top incoming freshman last year in Pennsylvania. He's here as well. And then Tyler Stoltzfus as well. So I like our chances because you look at the rest of the nation, and like you said, there's the 1, 7, 8, but then it goes 11, 12, 16, 20. So these are typically the weights where Pennsylvania will sneak on like 3 or 4. You know what I'm saying?
This is a tough one though, because like you said, we don't have that one guy that's guaranteed. I mean, I think Stoltzfus probably should be on the podium, but there's not a guy. If there was a guy that I looked at and I said, yes, he's guaranteed top 4, and then we can sneak 2 more on in the 4 through or 5 through 8. But I'm just not sure. When nobody jumps out at me and says, okay, that guy's definitely there, aside from an injury, there's no way that he's not getting on.
No, I think you're right. I mean, outside of maybe Stoltzfus, you say, and again, Clayton Ulrey could be here. He's apparently registered at 160 pounds. So if he's here, I would say you have to say maybe 2. But, Jack Bloomer has a win over Clayton Ulrey 3 weeks ago. Ethan Bainey, state medalist from Southwestern, he's here. Nick Delp, Colby Ellie, Luca Frenzy, Anthony Hinson, these guys, Ty McGeary, state medalist. These guys, I think, could end up getting on here and sneaking on here. I'm going to go 3, Eric. I'm going to go 3. Cole Reese as well. Cole Reese. I mean, I don't know. I can't see only 1 or 2 of these guys coming away with a medal. When you look at the rest of the field, that's the biggest thing for me. Is outside of the number 1 ranked guy in the nation. Alex Facundo, I believe that's what it is.
Yeah,
completely butchered his name.
You get to pronounce that one. He's really good.
Whoever he is, he's tough.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. But anyway, this is probably the toughest one so far because it wouldn't shock me if we had 1, and it wouldn't shock me if we had 3. I could see either way, it going either way. So I guess I'll split the difference and go 2, but I really don't know in this one whether it's going to be, a great thing for Pennsylvania or if we're going to look at it and say, oh man, there are a lot of guys that are about the same level but just couldn't step up to that podium.
Now, and again, Pennsylvania could come away with 0 at this weight.
That would
not be out of the realm of possibilities whatsoever. But because I'm extremely biased towards Pennsylvania, I'm going with 3 because I have faith in you guys. I have faith in you. You're good. You can do it.
Win one for the Gipper.
Win one for the good guys here. Okay. All right. 170 pounds. This is where it changes a little bit for me because the outside of Pennsylvania, people here are really, really tough. Dustin Plott is one that rings true to that. Patrick Kennedy from Minnesota. You know who he beat last year, the Super 32, Eric?
Who did he beat?
Trent Hidley.
I remember that match. It was a brawl.
So, Alex Kramer from Illinois. Christian Rodriguez from California. And then you got some Pennsylvania guys, Luke Nichter and Edmund Ruth.
How's Edmund Ruth only 13? Seems like he should be higher.
He was 13. I don't know. Yeah, you're right. He was 13 at the last installment of their ranking. So yeah, it's kind of silly, but he's a 2-time state champion from Pennsylvania, from Susquehanna Township. You got to expect him to get on the podium.
Yes.
I mean, is he a lock here to get on the podium?
It seems to me like he is.
I would agree with you, but I mean, 13 in the nation. I mean, outside. Okay, you have the top 4 guys in the nation. Plott, Bealey, Kennedy, and Kramer, I think, are all, legitimate chances of doing really well here. Dustin Plott, Patrick Kennedy, probably my favorites to win it. But you throw in a guy like Luke Nichter, who was a state runner-up last year. So you add him, and then we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 wrestlers from Pennsylvania registered to compete at 170 pounds. So if you're going to go with 2, you're saying, essentially, a quarter of the wrestlers.
This is where the brackets start to get a lot smaller, though, too. Because you start getting into that size where guys are still playing football. And so the brackets from 170 on up aren't nearly as big as they are from, 38 down.
Sneaky pick here, Lenny Pinto from Stroudsburg and Caden Wright from Emmaus. I think both those guys are poised to have really good seasons this year. John Hoover from North Allegheny as well. Jeffrey Marquette from Peters Township, I think also. All the wrestlers here from Pennsylvania are tough.
Well, that's the one thing. They're smaller brackets, but the guys that are going to these preseason tournaments are ones who really concentrate on wrestling and tend to be better. So you don't get, some of the guys maybe with a little lesser records that you do at some places.
So I'm going to go with Nichter and Ruth for sure are getting on the podium. But outside of that, Eric, do you see a third one sneaking on?
Honestly, no.
Okay.
I mean, I'd love to see a John Hoover do it, somebody like that. But, yeah, I think 2 is probably the safe bet here.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 2 as well, although I hate doing that because I really think Lenny Pinto or Caden Wright or John Hoover has a chance to get onto the podium, especially Lenny Pinto. I really like the way he wrestles.
Can we call him Leaping Lenny Pinto? Like there's an old pro wrestler called, I think it was Leaping Lenny Poffo or something.
Yeah, I only watched real wrestling growing up, not fake wrestling. I'm just kidding. I love the Iron Sheik. I'm going to go with 2. I'm going to go with a safe bet. I'm going to go with 2. So we'll agree on that. But I'm hoping this is one where we get proven wrong, and we have 4 or 3. So now 182, a little bit of a different story. 182, I'm really excited about this weight class, primarily because there's a guy by the name of Carter Siraki there, who I'm patiently awaiting to see where he ends up going to college, because I think whoever gets him is getting a potential national champion. I think once he gets to college, he's just going to flourish beyond measure. I really do. I see great potential in him at the college level. But Strachey is here. He's number 3 in the nation. Abe Assad from Illinois is number 2. Jackson Turley from Virginia is number 6. Then you have Garrett Nyhouse from Cannon Mac, who is number 6 at 170 pounds, but he's registered at 182 pounds. And Julian Goring from Fort LaBeouf, who's recently committed to Appalachian State. He's number 18. So I like those odds. I mean, I look at this and I like, the chances of these guys getting on the podium. But then you look at some other names. Nehemiah Diggs from Harrisburg, super under the radar. He was a state qualifier last year from Harrisburg. Stephen Newell from Dallas, he's another one. Jerry Seymour from West Scranton, guy that can scrap. So you look at 182 pounds, yeah, there's some pretty tough guys nationally, but can Pennsylvania, sneak a few on here?
Yeah, I mean, you look at this one, and this is where you feel comfortable saying, okay, Siraki's going to be there, Ninehouse is going to be there, and Goring has a good shot at being there. And then after that, I think you need an upset or 2 to get there. But, yeah, this is one of the stronger weights for Pennsylvania when you look at those 2 that you're almost guaranteeing getting on there. So I'm going to go ahead and go with 3. I'm going to go with 3, say Julian Goring gets on there as well.
So this is going to surprise you, Eric, but I'm going to go with 2.
Because you hate Pennsylvania.
Super hate it. Yeah, I don't even know why I run this thing. I'm just looking at it, and there's some really talented guys here outside of Pennsylvania. Sammy DePrez from New York, Jackson Turley, as I mentioned, Chris Vaca from New Jersey, who is number 9 at 170 pounds, Rocky Elam from Missouri. These guys are all really talented, top-tier wrestlers. So I think it's going to be tough for us to get on 3. I'm going to go with 2, Strachey and Nyhouse, but I don't know. Hopefully I'm wrong. But that was the first time I think that was the first time I picked lower than you did. Is that right?
Yeah, maybe. And I may be picking, I like these kids. I know, like, Carter's one of my favorite kids to interview. Not that I wouldn't be picking him anyway. But Julie and his dad are both really good guys. So it might be picking with my heart a little bit here. But I think he has the chance to get on there.
I do that all the time. I pick with my heart all the time, and it ends up sometimes not working out for me. But, okay, so we'll go with 2 and 3. I'll have 2, you have 3. 195 pounds. And this is where, we start seeing, like you said, thinning out a little bit because of the fact that it is still football season. But this is where we get some really interesting results because we get a lot of tough guys that are coming away with medals here. I think 195 is one where we can definitely sneak a few people on. You got the number 2, 5, 6, 8, 10, 11, and 16 ranked wrestlers in the nation. The number 16 is a guy who hasn't even wrestled a high school match yet. That's Colby Franklin. Formerly of Du Bois, he's now at St. Joseph Catholic. He's coming in at 195 pounds. But Colin Fegley from Mahoney area, he's here as well. Joey Kurtz from Bethlehem Catholic is here. John Myers from Greensboro Salem. And then Jack Wimmer from the McDonough School down in Maryland. He's a Chambersburg guy. He's Pennsylvania through and through. He was third in the National Prep Championships last year. I really can see us getting 3 on here. Justin Hart from Hampton as well, another guy that is only a sophomore, and he's the younger brother of Jake Hart, who was a state champion. I like Pennsylvania's chances here. I think Colby Franklin's got a lot to prove as a freshman, but I would not be surprised to see Wimmer join him on the podium and Colin Fegley as well, with an outside shot of Justin Hart and Joey Kurtz getting on there as well, maybe even John Myers. So this is where the lack of numbers, it's a lot easier to win and get on the podium at these bigger weights because, like you said, the brackets are a little bit smaller. Or not a little bit, they are a lot smaller. But I think unlike our previous weights where we have Starocki, Thane Lawrence, Edmund Ruth, those guys, I don't think we have a guy who I look to and say, yeah, definitely the guy who's going to get on the podium. But just by virtue of the odds, and you look at the nature of these wrestlers here, I think we have a good chance to get a few on.
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. I watched Colby Franklin out at Fargo, and I think he's going to be on the podium. He's only a freshman and at a big weight, but he is a heck of a young wrestler. And I think he's going to be there. And I agree with you that this is a possibility to get quite a few here just because, as you said, there's not the depth here. And so I could easily see a Justin Hart making that jump and getting on there, and Jack Wimmer. So I'm safely going to stick at 2, but it wouldn't surprise me to see 3 here.
Eric, I hate that you bring me down this road with you. I'm going to go with 2 as well. I am going to go with 2 as well. But again, I hope I'm wrong. And
it wouldn't surprise me to see 3. I mean, I could easily see Franklin, Wimmer, Hart, like you said, Fegley pushing in there. I mean, there are guys here that definitely can get on the podium, that they're not far off it at all.
Oh, 100%. And it's a guessing game at this point, at this type of weight. And it's just looking at the rest of the competitors and saying, do we have an outside shot? So, yeah, I agree. I'm going to go with 2, but wouldn't be surprised to see 3. 220 pounds. We only have 4 wrestlers from Pennsylvania competing. But there's only 4 wrestlers ranked in the nation competing here, led by none other than Braxton Amos from West Virginia. And he's just a phenomenal wrestler.
He's going to do bad things to people here.
He always does bad things to people.
But especially whenever it's when you've only got a handful of ranked guys, he's going to destroy some people early on.
So from Pennsylvania, there's some guys that I really like. Jacob McMaster from Greenville, third in the state last year, was a guy who I think I picked to be in the state finals last year, was third in the state. I think he has a chance to make some noise here. Augie Atwood from Armstrong, a guy who was under the radar 100% last year, but he came through and made it to the state tournament. I think he has a chance to do well. And Davis Lee from Pennsbury, also a guy who's done a lot of off-season wrestling and has impressed me. So I'd say 2 here. For me, 2.
I'm not so confident here. I mean, I know it's a small bracket. I'm going to go 1 here. And I guess the size of the bracket probably makes me think that we'll definitely get 1. But, I don't think this is our strongest weight by any means.
No, I 100% don't think it's the strongest weight, but I just think the lack thereof of competitors, I think a guy like Jacob McMaster and Augie Atwood can find their way onto the podium just by virtue of the fact that it is a smaller bracket. So that's just why I'm picking that. Not that I need to justify it to you, but because I love Pennsylvania. So let's move up to the final weight class of the Super 32, and that's 285 pounds. And you look at the national rankings, you got the number 11, 12, 17, 18, 19, 20. So, but you look at Pennsylvania's chances here. Again, maybe it's the color glasses I have on, but I really like the chances of Pennsylvania getting three guys on the podium here. Kobe Whitehill from Whitehill from Brookville is a guy who was 8th in the state last year. You've been high on him for a long time, Eric.
Yeah, a couple of times. What is he? 4-time? I think 4-time Fargo All-American. At least I know he was double last year. And this year he was in the finals, so at least 3. I don't know if he wrestled Greco this year or not. I can't remember, but at least 3-time Fargo All-American.
Yeah, he's really tough. He's really good. He comes in ranked number 19th in the state or in the nation. Was an 8th place finisher last year at the state tournament. Isaiah Vance from Hempfield was a freshman last year and qualified for the state tournament at heavyweight. That isn't enough. That is pretty impressive.
Especially out of the Whippeal, it's not easy.
Right. So he's coming back as a sophomore state qualifier. I think he has a legit shot. Jalen Stevens from Myersdale, a guy who wasn't able to compete in the postseason last year due to an injury, but, we've both been pretty high on him and what he's been able to do.
Yeah, he's a Fargo All-American.
Right. Yeah. He and Whitehill competed at Fargo, and, they're always kind of neck and neck. And Nathan Hoagland from Mount Lebanon, a guy I've been really high on, kind of like you on Whitehill, because he's been competing in almost every single thing under the sun and doing well at that. He's been at Journeyman. He's been at all the dual tournaments. He's done really well for himself in the off season. So I really do think we can get 3 guys on the podium, especially because you look at the lack of depth here. So I'm going to go with 3 here for Pennsylvania.
It scares me a little bit that there are only 5 guys here, but I'm going to agree with you, and I'm going to go 3 here because I think Whitehill is a very solid chance of being high on the podium. I'm probably a little bit of a homer on Jalen Stevens, but he's backed it up. I mean, he was good last year in high school. As you said, he missed the postseason, so he didn't get to show what he could do there, but went out to Fargo and really opened a lot of eyes there. I know college coaches were asking all about him early on out there. And then I like Hoagland probably as a third guy to get on there.
Yeah, so I mean, you look at, and I know there's only 5 scares us to say, 3 of the 5 are going to get on the podium, but Hoagland, I like him. Ryan Howard from Waynesburg, Jalen Stevens, Isaiah Vance, and Colby Whitehill. I would say it's definitely in the realm of possibilities for 3 of those 5 to get on the podium. Just from watching these guys compete and especially in the offseason. I mean, these guys have had some pretty notable results, as you said, Jalen Stevens and Kobe Whitehill being 2 of them. I mean, that's maybe a homer kind of analysis, but we're going to agree with 3.
Yeah, I think 3 is certainly possible there.
Well, Eric, that's going to wrap up our preview of the 2018 Super 32 tournament. Again, really looking forward to that drive down with you, Eric. Hopefully we don't end up killing each other, as it sometimes does happen. But really excited about the Pennsylvania wrestlers going down there to compete, and equally as excited, if not more excited, to turn back around and have the surge here in Pittsburgh, Johnstown, University of Pitt, Johnstown. Just a lot of good stuff coming up here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, definitely going to be a great couple of weeks. Super 32, it's our 3rd year going, really kind of getting into the flow of it and understanding how things work down there, and able to hopefully put out some really good content for our followers that love Pennsylvania wrestling. And then, as you said, the next week is going to be all about the surge and getting ready there. Got a lot of good, talented wrestlers in it already, and I really think we're going to see a lot more in the next week or so that are signing up for it. Want to get that chance to get some really good competition in before the start of the season. This is such a great opportunity for it, and I think we're going to see that a lot more big-name guys getting into it in the next week and a half.
Yeah, I agree. Everyone waits to the last minute to commit to things and to sign up for things. So I wouldn't be surprised if next week we get a sort of a bump in people registering. We've had a steady flow, and we're already up over 200 registrants, which is good, especially with the names there. There's a lot of tough guys, a lot of good wrestlers coming in. So it's just I think it's going to be a great event. I mean, obviously we're a little biased, but I think it's going to be a great event for Pennsylvania wrestlers.
And for that, Jeff is going to pick everyone in the tournament to place.
I probably am. I mean,
they're all Pennsylvania kids, so they're all going to place.
Every single one of them is going to win. You know, it is 2018. We are a participation. You know, hey, you guys competed. You came and weighed in. Here's a ribbon. Here's a trophy. I'm really excited about the Super 32 though, to see guys like Bo Bartlett, Sammy Hilligus, Carter Starocki, Ryan Anderson, Edmund Ruth, those guys competing against the nation's best. People say that this year the class of 2019 in Pennsylvania is a little weaker, which maybe it is compared to years past because of how dominant we've seen, guys in the past, 4 or 5 years, Vincenzo Joseph, Chance Marceller, Spencer Lee, Hayden Hidley, Michael Kemmer,
Gavin
Jason
Teasdale.
Nolf, Gavin Teasdale. I mean, there's obviously the ceiling's really high. So you look at 2019, you're like, whoa, there's no one that big of a name, or, you don't have the depth there. But I really think this squad that's going down to Super 32 this weekend, I think they're going to do well. So, give some sort of momentum to that Pennsylvania, those Pennsylvania wrestlers competing. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it, Eric. I hope you are as well, because we got a long trip down.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We'll keep you plugged in as far as what's happening down there. Get you some stories, some tweets, some Facebook posts. Let you know everything that's going on from Greensboro to Follow Pennsylvania Wrestling.
Yeah, it's pure chaos down there, but you and I are going to be running around like chickens with our heads cut off trying to figure out who's on what mat, because there's 919 different mats down there, so it's pretty tough to figure out. But we're going to do our best to get the best coverage out to you with all the Pennsylvania results from the Super 32. Our next podcast will be for the Surge preview, so we're going to be previewing all the participants in the Surge for November 3rd and 4th. And again, you can still register to compete in the Surge. Go on Flow Arena, and you'll find the Surge by PA Power Wrestling. Go ahead and click on register. Go on there and get signed up for the Surge. Again, it's only a one-day tournament on Sunday. Weigh-ins will be on Saturday and or Sunday morning, so you have a chance to weigh in early if you so choose to. But really looking forward to that, to the next couple weeks here, Eric. Stay tuned in to PA Power Wrestling at papowerwrestling.com. You can follow us on Twitter at PA Power Wrestle, on Instagram, and give us a thumbs up on Facebook as well while you're at it. Again, you can also listen to us on Spotify now too. So we're going mainstream now, Eric. There's no reason why you can't have us on your airwaves.
Yeah, we're the big time. Hopefully those Missouri and California kids don't know anything about Gabe Willashell yet, though.
Very, very much so. I hope you're right, Eric. So looking forward to the Super 32. And until next time, Pennsylvania wrestling fans, keep it powerful.